Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight, I apologize for not being in class today, so I'm going to have to record this session. I was called out unexpectedly to a funeral. However, I want to make sure that because we have such little time in this particular semester, I want to make sure we didn't skip a beat. So what I'm going to do is I've recorded this session for tonight to cover as chapter 3, which is the fundamental aspects of family therapy. Okay, so it's a rather short chapter. I think you're going to learn more about definitions than you are anything. I'm going to try to amalgamate some of those definitions with some examples and some experiences that I've had as a clinician. But I will certainly do my best to talk about those skills. And I apologize that I will not be able to take any questions, obviously, because it's a recording. But please feel free, as usual, to contact me, call me if you have any questions. You want to talk offline regarding anything that you want a little bit more specific information. Again, everything that I cover, it's in preparation, not only to help you pass this course, but also to prepare you for your LPC exam for those that are pursuing LPC credentials, or for those that are pursuing school counseling as well as part of the 7 or 8 elements that are necessary for school counselors to learn. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to go ahead and record this session. Well, I've already recorded this session. By the time you see this, it's already recorded. So let me go ahead and get started. Today, we're talking about chapter 3. We're talking about the fundamental concepts of family therapy. Now, before I get started, I do want to say this. When we're talking about conceptualizing, when we're talking about concepts, please understand it's not something that's very apparent sometimes. It's not something that is tangible. Sometimes we use terms like inferences, implications, implied. Last week we talked about meta communication. I'm going to mention it again tonight only to reinforce that, because that is critical to your counseling skills, is learning how to function outside of your first level of communication. It's very important that you understand inferences and implications. So I'll mention that term again tonight because it's included in this particular chapter, and of course it expands on it just a bit more. But tonight we're talking about fundamental concepts of family therapy, which means how we construct thoughts. How can I put it in simple terms? Sometimes we as counselors, we have to be very effective in learning to read between the lines. A lot of times when clients come to you, it's not because they have it all figured out, because if that was the case, they wouldn't need you. So a lot of times we have to be very particular, have this informal aspect about us. They use informal assessments to identify words that are used in the conversation, facial expressions, body movements, certain intonations, or rate of speech. That sometimes it's used, hand movement, the animations like I'm doing right now. All those things will paint a picture, but it also helps you as a clinician to conceptualize a problem. Remember, problems are not meant to, problems don't naturally just go away, especially in relationships, and whether it's in family or as a couple in marriage. Couples often miss the opportunity of learning to solve problems because they've triggered each other emotionally and they become emotionally hijacked. So like with anything else, problems are meant to be solved. So saying something so hurtful and so hateful does nothing to help promote the aspect of trying to answer a question, trying to solve the problem. If anything, it alienates your partner, or it alienates your child. It makes it harder for them to think clearly. Basically, you're shutting down the prefrontal cortex, where logic, analytical thinking, critical thinking is transpiring, and in return, they become very emotional. Basically, you're activating their limbic system, so they're very emotional. So again, you can't have both. You can't have emotion and you can't have logic and analytical thinking, critical thinking, logic. You can't have that. When you activate one, you stimulate one, you start minimizing the other, and vice versa. So conceptualizing a problem means you have to be able to move beyond the first level of communication. Remember, and let me go and jump in right now and talk and define the definition for meta communication. Again, meta communication is defined as having 2 levels of communicating something. The first level is the most superficial, when something is simply stated. And often people, when they say things, fail to accurately describe or convey their meaning. And that's where the other person has to use analytical thinking or deep thinking to try to determine what this person is actually saying. But because the way it was stated at first level communication, it's not stated the way it needed to be stated. Okay, let me give you an example. I was once working with a couple, and the guy said, "You know what? I hate you when you do stuff like that." It was already up towards about the middle of the counseling session, and the husband, I guess, just got really upset. You know what? And he just told her right flat out in front of me, "I hate when you do that." You know, and I already had told him during that particular exercise. I told him, "You know what? I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm going to see exactly what it looks like when you all two are addressing the specific issue." So certainly, I kept up to my promise. I didn't interrupt. I allowed them to go at it. And sure enough, when he said that, she turned around and she got real defensive. And she said, "Well, yeah, I hate when you do this." And they started going at each other. After a while, when I saw that they were not successfully addressing the issue, I went ahead and stopped them. I said, "Okay, that's good enough information. Let me just ask you all a few questions." Again, keeping meta communication as in the back of my mind, because that's what I was exploring, and I wanted to unveil what they were failing to see. So what I did, I explained to them. I actually addressed him first. I asked him, "So you stated, if I heard you correctly, and please feel free to correct me at any point, okay? I just wanted to make sure I understood this correctly. When you told her, I hate you when you do, I hate it when you do things like that. Um, do you hate her?" "No," she said. I hate when she does that. You know, make me feel like I'm a little kid. I'm not a little freaking little kid." I could see that he was still kind of worked up. So then I asked him again. I asked him, "Well, okay, I need some more clarification." So I asked him, "Okay, so what is it about that gets you so upset? Let's peel that onion just a little bit, okay?" She tried to interrupt, and I stopped her. I said, "Oh, no, okay, we'll get to your part in a minute. I want to make sure I understand him correctly, and then I'm going to do the same thing with you, okay?" So, well, I hate it because, and after several attempts, he finally got to the issue. I said, "Well, he basically said, you know what, it scares me to know that she would do something like that. And she, and it scares because I don't want her to have to go through something like that. And it just scares me." "Oh, so you're saying that you care about her?" Whoa, you see how I gave it meaning? I reflected on what he was saying, and basically I gave it to him packaged in a different word. I got his meaning, and I said, "Okay, so you're saying that you care about her?" And he looked at me like, "What?" Uh, so now I want you to think about for that just a minute. We're not in a hurry here. So you're saying that it gets you upset because that's a second line emotional experience, because what you're really thinking is, "I'm scared and I don't want that to happen to her." And he said, "Yes, that is the case. I guess I do care." "Okay, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with me." So then I went to the spouse and I asked the spouse, "So let me ask you a question. What is it like to know that you have someone that cares about you?" "Yeah, but you don't understand." "Well, no, hold on a second. Hold on a second." But again, she was still kind of worked up. I said, "I understand that. But what I need to know right now, again, I'm just getting clarification. I want to know, what is it like for you to know that you have a husband that is scared and is worried about you and cares about you?" "Well, I guess I guess it makes me feel good." "Okay, okay. So let me ask you a question now. Do you believe he was successful at relating to you the message that it scares him and that it worries him, that you worry him, and he doesn't want you to experience that situation if you continue?" Did he relate it to you like that?" I said, "No." He said, "Yeah, I could have sworn he thought he hated me." Okay. So then I went back to him. So let me ask you a question. Did you know that you were not being that you were sending a different signal? You weren't sending the actual signal that you thought you were sending, what you meant? And they both just stayed quiet. What did I just do? I took them out of first level communication and I brought them into the realm of second level communication, where things are implied, where things are inferred. Okay. And I'm not going to define the difference between implication, implied, and inferences there, because there is a meaning. The only thing I can tell you is, when someone implies something, they're not ready, they're going to convey this message and no one's really going to change their mind. but you still have to read between the lines. When someone infers something, they say, well, this is what I'm trying to say. I don't know how effective I am, but this is what I'm trying to say. It's a little bit softer. But anyway, regardless of either or, they're both second level communication. Okay. So when someone is asking you to conceptualize something, I'm asking you, or we're asking you, or the person is asking you to think deeper. Don't be caught up on what is superficial, what is blatantly in front of you. Look beyond that. Read between the lines. Use your critical thinking. Use your prefrontal cortex. Use your critical thinking, your analytical skills to be able to see things that are being said. I'm going to give you one more example, and then I'm going to move on. Okay, it's going to be a short section today. It's only 7 concepts not 7 concepts, but 7 objectives or outcomes that I want to convey to you. But anyway, let me give you one more example. I had this one person who was a psychologist, okay, or a social worker, had a doctorate degree in social work. I was counseling this individual, and this person was saying how they felt the burden because this person trained troops that were pretty intense, trained special operations and things like that in the military, special ops they call them, pretty intense. And the person was telling me, you know what, I feel the burden that sometimes I feel like, I'm not teaching correctly, or they're making mistakes, or someone gets killed, and I just take the blame for it, or not the blame for it. I feel the responsibility, like I screwed up, I didn't do this correctly, and I'm a person of perfection, and I had and it just went on and went on and went on and went on and went on, and he just kept on going. And I asked him a question. I slowed him down for just a bit. Can I ask him, because he was a mental health provider, so he knows all the theories and concepts and approaches and things of that sort. So I kind of I was very effective in my listening skills. And I asked him, I asked permission to make an observation and share with him my observations. I asked him, "It's okay if I share some observations that I noticed?" And he said, "Sure. A few minutes ago, you said that you used the word burden, and you used the statement, you used the phrase, you stated, sometimes I feel the weight on my shoulders so heavy, it's hard trying to be perfect." Okay. Let me go to that first. I want to know, what is it like for you to feel this conflict? He said, "What conflict?" "Well, you're trying to be perfect. You're trying to be perfect." Trying meaning there's room for failure. Perfect means there is no room for failure. It's a paradox. Either you try or you're perfect. It's absolute. So I asked him, "What's that like for you to feel that kind of conflict?" Because I wanted to slow you down just a little bit, because I don't think you realize what you just said. And I wanted to know, what does it feel like when you're living with two completely opposite definitions? What is that like for you? Is that where the anxiety is coming from? And his eyes just got really watery. He started crying. He had never seen it that way. I said, "You can't have a war with only one side. You have to have two opposing forces to have conflict. And you're walking with that conflict in here. So I want to know, what is that like for you to have that conflict?" He hadn't seen it that way. But what did I just do? I helped him conceptualize what was going on. But I had to be very vigilant about the words he was using, statements, phrases, body language, intonations, all of that helped me. And I was just very vigilant. I was picking and choosing. So basically what he was doing, in a nutshell, he was just reinforcing terms that were caused and that were stimulating. If you understand cellular structure and cellular communication, you'll understand that he was actually stimulating regions of the brain that were in conflict with each other. So there was an internal war going on here, hence anxiety. Okay. So that's what happens when you understand the concept of conceptualization in family therapy. That sometimes people say things in a way that's lacking. It's not complete. It doesn't convey the full meaning. And remember, words are vehicles that carry your meaning. So whatever words you're using, not only are they trying to convey what you mean, you're getting the inside world to the outside world by words, but at the same time, those words will reinforce your meaning. And that's that cyclical concept, okay? So today we're going to talk a little bit about cybernetics, and well, hopefully, we'll get to, I'll definitely cover cybernetics, some of the advantages and disadvantages of consequences of positive and negative feedback, okay? And then I want to make sure you understand the concept of what your body tries to do. In this case, your brain tries to do to maintain what we call homeostasis, and I'll define that for you in a minute, okay? Also, I want to help you understand the distinction between constructivism and social constructionism. There's a difference between the two, okay? And I also want to explain how family therapists use the concept of complementarity of behavior, okay? And I think that should be good enough for tonight. So what I'm going to do, and that's another thing, I'll post the quiz and the video reflection. I think the video reflection is already out. Are they? Yeah, the video reflection is already out. It's the quizzes. I'll release them when I cover the material. Okay, I think that's what I was going to say. I don't know. I mean, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and start releasing some more quizzes and video. The video reflections are already released. Okay. Anyway, so in order for us to understand, in order for our founders of family therapy, what they had to do to truly understand behavior, to truly understand the people's thinking processes that ultimately result in certain behaviors, it was important that they brought in, or to understand concepts, these founders brought in biology, the study of philosophy, the linguistics of communication. They even brought in the concepts of engineering, how things form and develop as they're being manufactured and structured. They studied anthropology, and they brought all that together to help them understand the family structure, the family unit. So tonight, what we're going to do, we're going to start off tonight by defining some terms, and then I'll expand on them just a little bit. Okay. The first thing we want to define is called, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Okay. It's the black box metaphor. Okay. And the black box metaphor, say that 3 times really fast. See if you don't get tongue tied. Okay. That people live within the realm of a box. And sometimes that box has no outlet or inlet. It's just a box. So the person that's dwelling in the box is a metaphor for the person's way of thinking, what's familiar to them, their ability to see things within a certain familiarity. So just think of it as a box and a person living inside that box. Look at a shoebox. They live inside that shoebox. Well, after a while, for years and time, as time goes on, everything inside the box becomes very familiar. Okay. Every speck, every aspect, every component, every element of that box, in the internal aspect of the box, becomes very familiar. So introducing that person who is very familiar with that box and only that box, trying to introduce something that's outside box, it's foreign to them. And the way our natural propensity as human beings is, it has a defense mechanism. When the unknown is present to us, it's not unusual for us to feel some sense, as humans, to feel a sense of apprehension, to feel a sense of caution, because it's unknown. Okay. Not everybody looks at the unknown as a challenge, and I'm going to take this on. Not everybody does that. So if you feel that apprehensive about your future in certain areas, you're being human. It's okay. Which is why I want you to ask me questions. I know Satali and Jennifer was not able to meet with you today because I didn't realize that the campus was closed. The campus is closed, so no students can go in and out. But I will meet with you all virtually tomorrow as we schedule. Okay. But I do, not just for you two, but for all of you, ask me questions. I want you to know things. Okay. Because a lot of you are walking into the unknown. Okay. Yes, I want you to pass your exams. Yes, I want you to pass your quizzes, and I want you to write some pretty incredible video reflections. but I'm also here to help you through the process of developing your skills. Okay. Now, I'll still hold you to your reading though. Okay. So anyway, so when the black box metaphor represents tries to understand the person's behavior by trying to evaluate the input and the output. Well, what's coming outside of that box? Well, wait a minute, Darcy. You said that there's no outlet nor inlet. No, I'm just saying the person doesn't like to dwell outside of that box. But whatever's inside the box will eventually come out in the form of behavior. So when a person is very closed off in their thinking, very conservative in their thinking, um, it's because familiarity of what's comfortable for them is all that's needed. The unknown of the outside of the box is not. It's very uncomfortable. So you can always, not always, but you see how I just corrected my word because I felt that wasn't a very good inference or an implication of what I was trying to convey. It's not unusual for individuals to live in a more conservative state and want to stay in that. They don't want things to change. They're comfortable with where they're at. They're comfortable with their surroundings. They don't need nothing new. Okay. And in turn, they would maintain that becomes their normal. Or in other words, that becomes when things try to change it, they try to bring it back to that normalcy. We call that homeostasis. Okay, I said I would define that for you. So homeostasis is when a person tries to bring it back to what they consider as normal. Okay, but sometimes life doesn't do that to you. Sometimes life will throw you some opportunities or changes or situations where, as you develop yourself as a human, as into an adult or in whatever different stages of life, you already took human growth and development. You know that we go through different stages in life. Well, challenges come with that. So individuals that are that are in one stage and they live inside that box, all of a sudden certain hormones start kicking in or whatever, and it's compelling them to see their box, and they realize that doesn't work for you anymore. I mean, like a whole bunch of you. I don't think y'all play with your Barbie dolls anymore, do you? Or some of y'all play with your trucks or your bikes or your video games or some. Oh, never mind. I don't play with video games. Never mind. Let's not go there. However, there's some things you do now that you know that you did. That there's certain things you don't do now that you did when you were a kid. Okay, that's because you changed. You allowed your box to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why in the book that I'm writing, when I start off talking about the cells, cell function is what helps a person. It helps you to depict the person that you are becoming, because you never are. You are always becoming. You're not static, in other words. You're not just boom, that's it. This is who I am. No, you're always evolving. You're becoming. So living inside a box, you can only understand what's inside the box by understanding the output. Well, you can also understand what's inside the box by understanding what's going into the box. When something's very comfortable for you, the question is how come? Okay. With that, and because we like familiarity and we like to maintain homeostasis, and this is another definition, boundary. We begin to set boundaries for ourselves, things that we will do, things that we won't do. And whenever you can always tell when you're getting close to a boundary you're about to violate or you're about to challenge a boundary that you maybe have developed over the years, you always know when you're close to one. You start getting real anxious. You start getting very emotional, start getting angry, frustrated. Oh, and then finally you either cross the fence or you stay in the confines of your fence. And if you stay in the confines of your fence, you'll probably say, dang, I can't even do that because I felt all this, Then you get mad at yourself for not being able to move beyond your present circumstances. Or let's say you cross the fence and you made a big mistake. Oh, I knew I should have stayed on that side of the fence. I shouldn't have trusted myself. No, you allowed yourself to try something new. Okay. It's when you straddle the fence, either, no, I can't use that. I can't use that metaphor. Anyway, either you get off the fence, cross the fence, or get off the fence and stay in the confines of your perimeter. Either way, boundaries help you to reinforce what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do. It's a sense of giving you some sense of emotional stability. Okay, that's why we like to live. We live by boundaries. There's certain things, and I give you all the example. What are we today? Thursday, Tuesday. There's just certain things you won't do, and and not all boundaries have different values. There's some boundaries, okay, I won't litter no more. I'm sorry, but that happened, or I won't do it again. That's different from I won't do this. So I think I gave you all the bullseye. Remember that? The closer you get to the bullseye, the more the stricter you are with your boundary. You're not willing to negotiate violating that boundary. There's just certain things you won't do. In relationships, those boundaries are sometimes broken because another person was raised with two parents or a parent or whoever that were a little bit more lax with their boundaries, while this other person that you married was a little bit stricter with their boundaries. So now every time this person doesn't see it, you're making such a big thing about nothing. Calm down. And this person gets upset. What do you mean, calm down? Don't you let it? And this other person get upset. Like, whoa, calm down. What are you so upset about? This person doesn't understand. This person doesn't know how this person doesn't care, and this is etc. And that just opens up a whole Pandora's box. Okay, it's because boundaries are being violated because people are raised with different boundaries. Okay. Circular causality is what you heard me say earlier about that when a gentleman that I was counseling, how those words will reinforce the meaning, and that meaning that you have in here is what really guides your behavior, because it stimulates certain regions of the brain that cause you to have motor responses. You behave, you say, you talk a certain way, you do a certain. That's why it's not unusual for that old adage that says, tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are. You find yourself starting to talk like your friends you hang out with every weekend. Why? Because we are meant to be influenced. So it begins to change the way we behave, the way we talk, and then that reinforces the behavior. Before you know it, you're on this interacting loop that repeats itself over and over, these repeating cycles over and over again. That's why in bilingual bicultural counseling, I like for my students to generate a genogram, because they get to see that circular causality where grandma did a certain way and daughter learned to behave that way, and then daughter brought that had children, and her daughter saw mom do that. Before you know it, this daughter's doing the same thing grandma was doing. Circular causality, repeated interacting loops, cycles. Okay. Now, one of the things that and that was another definition, circular causality. Another one is complementarity. I mentioned that earlier. That's something that we as counselors try really hard to do, is understand that there's something about, in family therapy or in couples, there's something that you possess that if you bring that helps to address a problem effectively. There's something that you can bring to the table that can help address that issue effectively. And everybody has that within them. That's why in some of the other classes, you hear me talk about motivational interviewing, where it's real easy to talk about the negative in a person. That's too easy. But I guarantee you, this is one of the few times that we'll speak in those absolutes and in general terms also, where you can apply this in generalistic way, that there is a positive in every negative situation. It's hard to see it. That I'll give you. Sometimes it's hard to see the positive. You may have 1% positive encapsulated with 99% negativity, but it still exists. And a complementarity definition and understanding, as counsel, we realize that there is a positive in there in the midst of all of that. There's a positive in there. And you can either spend time reinforcing the problem, or you can spend time talking about the positive. In other classes, I like to give the analogy of analogy of my hurting foot. Well, it's not an analogy. Actually, it's real. That really did happen. It's actual experience that I had. Matter of fact, it still has, because I have an old Army injury where I injured my ankle. We were getting ready to go on a particular deployment, and we were doing exercises at in the jungle and things of that sort. And I had my M16 and I had full gear, and we were going through this and that, and I jumped, and when I jumped, there was a big old hole there, and my jump boot it fell in there, and I just felt like just pop, it just popped. Well, I messed up my ankle. Anyway, I had a lot of weight on my back, and then my full gear and everything. The my ankle's hurting. And it's been hurting for what? I did that when I was 27. I'm 57 now. So what? And you do the math. Okay. So I was 30 years old, right? That's been 30 years. So it's been hurting since then. So it's a chronic problem. So is my goal in life to get rid of the pain, or is my goal in life to restore my comfort? I'll let you think about that for just a minute. Let me say it again. Is my goal to get rid of the pain, to get rid of what's wrong with me, or is my goal in life to restore my comfort in life? It's the same thing. I'm saying the same thing. However, the first statement talks about getting rid of something that's negative, something that's wrong. The other one's talking about using action to bring into my life something that is positive, rewarding, comforting. So whatever I emphasize, that I will reinforce cognitively up here, neurologically. Okay. So the question is, what do you want to reinforce? So, and I'm not saying you don't want to talk about, some of the rooted issues, traumas, and things of that sort. But when you're talking with family, and especially couples, please do not start your counseling sessions with, okay, tell me what's going on. What's the problem? No, please do not do that. You'll be successful. You'll have a very low rate of success. Always start. And when I say always, I highly, maybe not, well, I highly encourage you to start your counseling sessions like this. So tell me, before we get started with the counseling, addressing the issues and things of that sort, I'm just really curious about something. How did y'all meet? And they may not want to talk about those things because they hate each other at that point in time. But ask them, so what was it about her? What was it about him? Really? Out of all the men in the world, you chose him? Wow, what was it about him? Well, this and that. They start talking, they start laughing and stuff. So, and I just stay there for just a little bit. Why? I'm depositing some inventory because we're about to go down this negative path. And if they're already on empty emotionally, they don't need, it's going to be hard to go through this path of difficulty without any positives. So I'm trying to deposit some positive in there so that they'll have an easier time going to the negative paths. Okay, so back to the definition of complementarity. We all possess something wonderful that you can bring to the table to address an issue or to restore comfort. It's up to you. You can wake up in the morning and say, you know what, okay, I wonder what negative things I'm going to have to push away. Or you can wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I want to know what decisions I'm going to make to bring good things into my life. It's up to you how you want to approach life. Okay. Then we have another definition we call constructivism, which kind of correlates or helps to, not correlates, but it helps to develop your complementarity attribute within you. Constructivism, understand that it is a way of learning. It is a concept. Epistemology, it's a epistemological paradigm where we learn, we're always learning. And constructivism with the V, Victor, constructivism is a framework, the paradigm that says that I gain knowledge every moment. In other words, that's what caused me to say what I said in my book in the first chapter. We are always becoming. You can learn something new. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago. Okay? Constructivism says I am always being influenced every day that I breathe. Things in life will influence my thinking. It will influence my knowledge base. Okay. And then the cybernetics, which goes hand in hand with that term. Cybernetics is really an engineering term that was used in manufacturing companies and warehouses because they were, the conveyor belt. Well, like for example, like Ford, they build up. By the time they finish going through all these different sections, at the end, a car is built. But they start over here with the frame, and then with the shocks and the tires and the motor and this and that, light, this. Every juncture in life helps to bring something new into that vehicle, right? Well, the concept of cybernetics, which is really, again, an engineering term that was brought into mental health, because I guess somebody in mental health was trying to understand, actually, they were trying to understand how to enhance and improve work ethic. So that's where cybernetics was born into the mental health field, because we are always learning. And when couples and families come to you, that exchange, that interaction, that experience is a great opportunity to learn something about each other. Just like I did with that couple, taking them from first level meta communication to second level communication where inferences, and I just made the inferences and the implications clearer where they could see them. All right. Only then they gain new knowledge about each other. She understood that he loved her and cared a lot about her, and he knew that he was not communicating effectively what he was trying to convey to her. Matter of fact, he was communicating the opposite, because she thought he hated her, because she always felt patronized. And I've seen it both also on the other way around too, where the wife is doing it and the husband is just, anyway. So what we try to do is we try to deconstruct the way they're viewing something. We're trying to disrupt what's inside that box, maybe just make an opening. And we're not saying change everything inside the box, no, but just if you can leave a little opening and maybe consider this new perspective. That's why in a counseling session, you have to be very careful not to give advice. Matter of fact, don't give advice, because counselors don't give advice. Counselors just make things clearer for them to make a more effective decision for themselves. But in order to do that, sometimes we have to deconstruct the very thing that's triggering emotional responses that make it very hard to think. Okay. So what I mean, but one most effective way to deconstruct is to use reflective listening and reflect, paraphrase, mirror. Okay. Those are really good. Summarize. Those are really good attending skills that help to deconstruct, not you deconstructing them, but you presenting information that they're presenting to you. You're just packaging it a little differently and giving it to them a different way, in a way they hadn't seen it. And then they decide what they want to do with it. You're deconstructing, okay? Another term is enmeshment. Enmeshment meaning where you're too close to, the best example I can give you is that mother whose child is going to pre-K, and she's hanging out by the window, kind of peeping Tomming, kind of just looking through the window, see exactly what they're doing, starts crying when the child goes into the classroom, and just keeps walking around, can't leave the campus. And that happens every day. I'm not talking about once or twice. No, this happens every day. And that child becomes very insecure simply because of the mother's behavior. So the enmeshment meaning is they're too meshed up, they're too close. And it was, hey, let the child be a child, let them go to school. And how many parents do things because they love their kids so much they don't want to make any mistakes, that they fail to give them an opportunity to make mistakes and to actually choose for themselves. So now they're older and they don't know how to make good decisions, and then you're getting upset with them because they don't make good adult decisions. Well, hello, you never allowed them to make decisions because you were scared they were going to fail. So you would do everything for them. Okay. Enmeshment. Okay. And then understand that family life cycle. Every family has a life cycle. It goes through different stages. Just like a couple, you first meet, you fall in love, and then you go through the honeymoon, then you go through the first year of marriage, and then before you know, you go through this next 2 to 5 year stage in your marriage, and you start having children, and or maybe you're bringing in children. I don't know. So that's what makes the people that are married already and they have children, they bring into the marriage mixed family. That's what makes it so hard sometimes. It's because you don't actually go through those stages have already taken place. And going through stages is very healthy because you do it together. So that's what makes that very difficult sometimes. But understand that family lives go through cycles. Then there's kids grow up, they go through prepubescence, and then they go through puberty, and then they go through teenage years, and then they start going to college, or they leave high school, start working or whatever. They start their lives, and then they have their kids. You become grandparents, and now you're a grandparent, and then the grandkids get older, and then before you know it, you become a great grandparent, and then you pass. You go through a life cycle. Okay, you go through illnesses, you go through all kinds of things, but the last thing is you go through the finality of death. Okay, And even that's another stage. Okay. So understand that family go through life cycles, and it's important to understand, try to depict or try to assess which stage they're in. Okay. So that's what makes sometimes when couples that get married and they already have children, that's what makes it so hard, because they don't have the luxury of going through those stages together. Okay. Then you have a family. Understand that every family has a structure. Okay, it's governed by certain rules, certain roles that each person plays. So you'll learn more about that in structural therapy and strategic therapy, and more in those two type of therapies. Then there's first order change, and this is where you have students. You have clients. You thought you had a good session. There was some change, but it was all superficial. It didn't last very long because it was superficial, right? That's for called first order change. Second order change is when you actually they permit themselves to be influenced, and in turn, they start trying something different. Maybe instead of screaming and hollering, even though they want to do that, they tell themselves, no, I'm not going to scream and holler. I'm going to stay focused on what I'm trying to tell this person. And now you're using logic. You're keeping your emotions at bay. Okay. So that's second order, a second order change. Then you have the function of the system definition. Okay. And I am going to warn you. As a matter of fact, you better write this down. I'm going to warn you right now. Function of the system literally means that counselors, mental health providers are distracted by what you see with your clients, by what they say, by the symptoms that present themselves to your, I've actually heard counselors, well, they're gonna be talking like that. I don't want to see them. I'm a Christian counselor. Like, what? Yeah, I'm a Christian counselor. I'm not gonna allow anybody to say bad words and things like that. Okay. So you're not a counselor. You're a Christian. Okay. Okay. I guess. And that's who you are. Yeah. What they're really saying is, I get distracted when I hear those things. Let me say it again. I get distracted when I hear that. Even though that's the way that person talks, that's the way they were raised. I'm not saying it's okay and that I'm going to condone that behavior. No. But what I'm saying is, I get distracted when I hear stuff like that. Well, guess what? The counseling session is not about you. It's about your client. Sometimes we get distracted because we have feelings because the way your marriage ended up, and you see the way the husband's treating the wife, you don't have a clue what's really going on, and you're already upset. You're already ganging on the husband because you're siding with the wife because of what you went through. But again, it's not about you. In counseling, we call that counter transference, and you can get sued for that. Remember, the counseling sessions are not about you. I don't care if it's someone that goes against your values and morals. You're there for your clients. Doesn't mean just because don't get me wrong. I've had different types of clients. You're not gonna. I am who I am. I know what I believe in. Like I said, because of the constructivist point of view, I'm always learning. I'm trying to learn from everybody as much as I can. I'm not gonna lose out on an opportunity. But just because you live like that doesn't mean that I agree with the way you live. And however, I'm not here about me. I'm here to help you with whatever it is that's going on. And if your lifestyle or whatever is getting in the way of your problem, well, I'm going to address it. Not because I'm against that. No, because it's getting in the way of what you're trying to accomplish in your life. But I'm going to say it, and I'm summarizing it really quick, that everything I'm telling you happens within a 4 or 5 session. Okay? But you'd be surprised. I even did a study on that. You'd be surprised on the functions of symptoms, how distracted people get because of what your clients bring to the table. Sometimes couples get upset. They're going to become emotionally. And then you get all apprehensive because it scares you before you know it. They have to be people they're not. They can't act the way they act at home. I'm not saying that they can do whatever they want, swing chairs and do whatever they want. No, there's got to be some order. But you've got to let them be who they are. How are you going to know what the issue really is? Okay. And the last two things that I'm going to talk about, the last one is social constructionism with an N, November. Constructionism. That simply means that, you know, the nurture nature argument. Uh, Basically, what this is saying is that we create our lens in which we see life through by our social environments that are consistently influencing the way we see things. Okay. Well, all right. That's really it for tonight. There's a lot of terms. It's a very quick section. Now, starting next week on Tuesday, we will begin studying the actual theories. Okay. I think I'll tell you what I do on Monday. I'm going to go ahead and release all the quizzes and everything. I'm just made up my mind right now as I was thinking about it. I'm just going to release everything on Monday so that those of you that want to read ahead of time and or do the quizzes, I'll let you do that. But again, I want to hear you in the conversations. I don't think for 1 minute that you're going to get a good grade if you stay quiet throughout the semester. It is not going to happen, and you need at least a B to pass the class. Okay, I want to hear you interact. If you're an introvert, let's talk to me about it. We can talk about it. But introversion to me is a person who's just experiencing fear. I was an introvert. That's how I know that. So you need to. It's important to get out of that. So I want you to interact with me. Okay. Um, you do that, you'll do well in the class. Okay. So study those definitions, and we'll talk more on Tuesday. Again, my apologies for not being here tonight. So I hope you find this video enjoyable as well as very beneficial to you. Okay. All right. Y'all have a wonderful evening.